what is it that really we do so differently as human beings? What is our special sauce? In one story, it's that we have the capacity for foresight, that we organize information and anticipate the future. In another, it's that we use tools. We extend our capacities. In another, it's that we have a capacity for analogic thinking. We create new combinations, make something novel out of 2001, A Space Odyssey, and a toy. But we understand not too much more about how we behave on a minute-to-minute basis than we do about how AI behaves. We don't see without predicting, without organizing. In the physical world, there is no color, there is no music. It's all what we create. We don't really, and when I say we, I mean not just us in the room, I mean the world scientific community, understand the problem of consciousness. To some extent, what particularly large language models or generative AI as a subset of AI do is very similar to what we do on a minute-to-minute basis. I mean, at this point, I expect everybody in this room has a working knowledge of what generative AI is about, but it's not that different from autocomplete. It's the same thing, just a lot better. And so when we think about these tools, you know, we think about them as being something distant from our reality. Why does latency matter in communication? When we think about conference calls via video and how much more awkward it was 5 years ago even than it is today. Or for those of us who remember the old days of transatlantic calling when there was a full half-second delay. It matters because in conversation, we are constantly predicting what the other person will be saying. It's running in the background all the time for all of us. The physiology of turn-taking in conversation is part of our software of relationships that differentiates us as a species. So, on one level, how can there be anything to human capacity that is not about electrochemical connections? Where would that thing reside? In what parallel universe is it situated? How can I be anything but the electrochemical reality of my brain? And if that's the case, then the answer to the question that we've posed today, and we're certainly far from the only people asking it, is yes, AI can build a big enough machine with enough capacity. Possibly that's the answer. So where we are today is AI doomed to be a stochastic parrot just feeding back to us the way large language models do? Some massive storehouse of our accumulated knowledge, but let's face it, still a microscopic subset of the human experience that has been fed up into these large language models? Or is it some kind of proto-Pinocchio that's about to come to life? 1943, McCulloch and Pitts, the first mathematical model of a neural network. Not much happens in the neural network world, but a lot happens in computing and eventually the internet. And perhaps the first person to see it in its totality is Vannevar Bush, who was the head of research and development during World War II. That means led the development of the digital computer, the first digital computer, the EDIAC, led the Manhattan Project, but wrote this paper in 1945 in the Atlantic that foresaw the internet and thinking machines. And this is a paper that actually, through various pathways, was hugely influential in the development of technology that we use today. Before today's business executives take their place with the mastodons, quite a span of years, if not generations, is likely to elapse. This is the great Herbert Simon speaking in 1950, anticipating how artificial intelligence would eventually come to challenge human intelligence in many domains. Then Google Maps, Google Translate, almost 20 years old. These massive threshold breakthroughs of just a few years ago, which at the time seemed really as far as things would go. Now we have study after study that demonstrates that AI can match or even outperform human beings in tests. But is it stochastic parroting? Has AI seen these questions before and is simply anticipating the next thing because it's already experienced it? Or, even if that's not the case, to what extent does a test reflect the ability to actually do a job? And we all know that being able to pass the bar exam doesn't mean you're an effective lawyer, and same with medical tests or whatever else. So, just a few years ago, Max Tegmark published his book, Life 3.0, in which he included this illustration. And, 2017, it seemed like art was still really outside of the realm, science. But, 2023, threshold year, breakthrough year, Copernicus moment. More and more capacity in more and more domains. And what are we on? iPhone 15, 14? I lost track. I got to get a new one. I don't know. We're just at ChatGPT 5. Read about this technology and think about the difference between 3.5 and 4. Now 5, Gemini. So this is a world of immigrants from the future. This is a future community that is joining us, and we have to figure out how to deal with them. By the way, I do sign up for the recommendation of be polite. Be polite with ChatGPT. First of all, I think you get a better outcome, and second of all, who knows? Let's be welcoming. But when we think about that rising water, are we at a moment of deluge? Do we have to build some sort of Noah's Ark for human capabilities? So in my last minute and 30 seconds, what is the answer? We have been through this before. Every single time there is a technological change, there is something that I call the bifurcation. 80, 90% of work becomes automated, low cost, maybe zero cost. 10, 20%, could be 5%, goes up market. Values at double, 5 times, 10 times, 100 times what it was before. The question is not what has happened in the past. You can read those stories, and I love those stories, by the way. I love history of technology. You can read those stories till the sun goes down and all the next day and keep going. But the real question is, will this time be different? And I love how Dali made the hair a kind of a turtle hair. It's like, okay. What's left is for us to be human. Okay? That's obvious. That's our comparative advantage. Every single time we've had a technological disruption all through human history, it has compelled humanity to redefine what it means to be human, and this is no different. Obviously, ChatGPT cannot do this. But what is it more that we do? And I'll just close on these final points, that we have a capacity for synchronizing, for communicating, that is known scientifically, but that we underappreciate. We are fundamentally a social species. How we communicate in ways that we're not conscious of is a deep element of human capacity that we will discover and rediscover and deepen over the next decade and century, because we will have no choice but to do otherwise. Thank you.